Oh, hello everyone.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about the late notice announcement for the stream. I was at work all day, so I didn't have a chance to um put an announcement out early today. So sorry.
I wasn't sure when you were getting home, so
I
I didn't.
wasn't
I
sure
didn't
what
make
time I was gonna get home either. Yeah.
Uh, hello Sophie. Hello Kayla. Dan, chilling at a castle. Feel like it would be most appropriate if we were reading like Game of Thrones today.
I know it would.
The Winterfell. It'd be more like I guess Casterly Rock out to the west. Hey, Robin.
Probably. Oh, this is the first time I've sat down in like 9 hours.
Busy day.
Yes.
Oh, and busy day for you guys. Looking at the poll right now, looking like Pride and Prejudice in the win.
Yeah, Pride and Prejudice.
30%, followed closely by Grimm's Fairy Tales, 27%. Forgot the S on Grimm's.
They know what you meant.
Yeah, close enough. And then Frankenstein bringing in third at 20%.
Yep. It looks like we might be going to Derbyshire. Hello, I hope you're well. Sorry I missed the last one. Oh, no biggie. No biggie, Glenn. No biggie. Oh.
Yep, no worries.
Oh, it just feels so nice to sit. I'm sorry. I'm still reveling in the fact that I'm not on my feet.
You're good. And if I'm kind of quiet tonight, guys, I'm not feeling that great. So I'm going to try to hang in there as long as I can, but
tea should help.
I'm hoping so.
Oh. Do we have peanut butter and jelly?
I think so. Why?
I was just asking.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Oh, Jackson, don't hurt me.
Sorry to hear about the copyright strike. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, Dan is like, I hope something beats Pride and Prejudice.
Right now, Pride and Prejudice.
Yes, Mike. Pride and Prejudice is neck and neck right now.
I'm posting the link in the chat.
Go ahead, take the poll.
In case anyone hasn't. Also, I think because a lot of people want us to do it, we're going to be taking suggestions for a book club.
Okay.
And we can, we can read any book in that, you know. But I know we were talking about the Percy Jackson series. But I think
don't do it.
Take suggestions for that up until like this weekend. Put the poll up. We'll run the poll till like the 15th, and then we'll do like a maybe once a month book club. Frankenstein is coming in third right now, 20%.
Sorry, I wanted to prevent that situation.
Oh, Grimm's Fairy Tales coming up with 28% now.
Yeah, Dan just voted for it. Well, we have until Sunday for everyone to vote. So
yep, the book club, just leave your suggestions and say Saturday. I'll put up the poll after everyone's kind of put in their input, and we can think of some things that we might want to read.
Book club?
Yeah. After it'll be easier once we get the book club going and we know everyone that's in there. And
yeah,
depending on how big it is, I mean, we could have a rotation, or if there's a ton of people, we'll just do a poll every time and we'll figure out what we're going to read.
All right, I pulled up the next chapter.
Okay.
Listen, if Pride and Prejudice does win, I encourage you all to have an open mind because it's a really good book. Just saying.
Might have to hop on my personal account and tie this race up a little bit.
Dan will listen because I'm awesome.
Ah, Dan. Thank you.
It is a good book. The characters are great.
I haven't looked at the comments on this post real quick. Let's see. Percy Jackson series would be awesome by Donnie. Yeah, I mean, it would be. It's not in the public domains. We can't do a audiobook of it, but we could definitely do it for book club.
I agree, Mike. I like Jane Eyre more. The only reason we didn't pick Jane Eyre is just the books we picked some rather short ones. We were going to start with something a little shorter first, but Jane Eyre is we're it's on the table.
Because I know we were thinking about doing Dracula and the Count of Monte Cristo.
Don Quixote someday. That's a long book, so I'll have to wait.
Yeah.
So some of the longer books we're just kind of putting on hold to maybe just read some shorter ones first. Yeah, I'm curious too, Robin. Why are you against the Jungle Book? I'm just also curious. Hi, Maddie.
Hello.
Peter Pan over the Jungle Book.
Oh, we did have a comment that wants us to read Gatsby.
Oh, Gatsby. Okay.
I mean, I could definitely give you my thoughts without having to read it.
If you do Jane Eyre, you should do Wide Sargasso Sea. If it's in the public domain, we could do it. We could read Gatsby anytime. Gatsby's short. And yes, I will discuss Gatsby all day long. Oh, okay. No. So Robin doesn't hate it. They're just like, it's just my least favorite.
Oh, okay.
So fair enough.
I'm kind of.
Kayla has never read or seen Pride and Prejudice. Oh my god, so good. So good. I feel like people like the miniseries that the BBC did with Colin Firth is really good. Then the movie with Keira Knightley is also really good. But the book.
Hi, Anna. And Siddhartha.
If Siddhartha's in the public domain,
I think it is. I mean, that was published a while ago.
I would totally read Siddhartha. I absolutely love that book.
Yeah, definitely think about what book you guys would want to do for a book club. We'll be doing the book club as kind of like a group thing where we'll do it in the Discord. We'll just start up a audio server where we can all just hop in and talk about it. We're thinking about like once a month. Like we'll read the whole book and then discuss it instead of how we and Noel were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're doing it once a week where we'd read a portion of it. We'll just read the whole book and discuss the book.
Siddhartha is in the public domain in the United States, but it is not in other countries. Is it my zoo behind you? What? Madam Beverages. My zoo?
Oh, right here.
Oh.
Mona's crafts.
Oh, yeah. She made a zoo. My daughter made a zoo. Yes.
And a spaceship.
Yeah, actually all the animals that are in that zoo, except for the middle one that's flopped over. That's an elephant.
I thought it was a kangaroo.
Well, she made it. She said it was supposed to be an elephant, but then she said she called it a possum because it doesn't look like an elephant. She thought it stunk.
Oh.
So, but all the other animals that are in that little zoo, we actually do have at our zoo. So that's cool.
I love the line. He just has the most bewildered look on his face.
The snow leopard's really
I'm
happy.
a lion?
Wuthering Heights is really, really good. Wuthering Heights is so good.
That is in the public domain.
Yes, it is. We could read Wuthering Heights.
I've never read it.
We should totally do it. Heathcliff is an awesome character.
A lot of them are very short books, so I feel like we're going to be able to go through a lot of the books in the public domain very quickly.
Yeah, Wuthering Heights isn't very long. Jane Eyre is pretty lengthy, but Wuthering Heights isn't too big.
And I know we definitely wanted to jump into Grimm's fairy tales and touch on some of the original stories that inspired like the Disney stories, like the original Little Mermaid.
That's a Hans Christian Andersen story, though.
Yeah. Okay.
But those are in the public domain
too. But either way, it's fascinating to see how much those stories have changed. How people don't realize how dark a lot of those fairy tales were. Like, it's hard to picture Walt Disney or whoever was making these movies at the time just looked at it like, ooh, I could make this for kids.
I mean, they were for kids back in the day.
Yeah.
Life was harder when those were written.
You're gonna die by 21, so you gotta grow up fast.
Yeah, you do. Should we start?
Yeah, why not?
Let's get started. I feel like this next chapter is gonna be let's get started. All right. I'm not looking forward to this chapter at all.
Come on, we gotta start the stream positive.
All right, positivity. This is going to be a great chapter with the werewolf plot.
Negative thoughts lead to negative outcomes.
Okay, here we go. Chapter 160. The War. Foot Soldiers. References to sex violence and animal death in this chapter.
Oh, we have another vote for Pride and Prejudice.
Pride and Prejudice.
Isn't that what I said?
No, you keep putting a D on the end of the word.
Oh, I didn't mean to. I thought I just said Pride and Prejudice.
Alright, here we go. I count the corpses on my left. I find I'm not so tidy. So I better get away, better make it today. I've cut 23 down since Friday, but I can't control it. My face is drawn, my instinct still emotes it. The hot swell of power in Remus's body did not dissipate as quickly as it had before, perhaps simply because it was always there, only now he knew how to tune into it. Or maybe it was a different defense mechanism, because instinct told him what was coming next. Everyone in the crypt could feel it. A few of them stood up anxiously. Livia closed her eyes and sighed with pleasure. The heavy, swift footsteps echoed through from the church above. Adrenaline flooded Remus's body as the concrete slab covering the entrance of the crypt was pushed aside. Greyback descended. He looked different from before. He was not on the defensive now. He was smiling, his posture and scent welcoming, amiable. Remus's heart skipped a beat. Greyback smiled, his eyes dark and secretive as the forest. "Remus Lupin," he said. "I think it's time for a chat." Remus nodded, awestruck. Greyback nodded too, still smiling, then turned and began to climb the stairs again. Remus followed without even glancing back. Finally, this was his chance. To do what? He didn't know yet. All Remus knew in that moment was that his father had come for him, and he was elated. The air grew fresher and cleaner as they surfaced in the ruined church, and Remus breathed in deeply, closing his eyes. It was close to evening, cool and quiet. Under the dimly lit clouds, the forest round them was transforming from day to night, the nocturnal creatures yawning and stretching and creeping out of their holes and tunnels. Greyback led Remus up the aisle of the church through the arched exit, and they walked, not very far, through the slender beech saplings, past sturdy English oaks, down a narrow hidden pathway which led to a kind of cave at the base of a hill. A den. Without looking back, Greyback entered, stooping only slightly at the entrance before straightening up as the mouth of the den opened wider and higher than Remus could have anticipated from the outside. He followed because there was nothing else to do. Inside it smelled like home, earth and forest and meat and wolf. Though there was no natural light source, as soon as Greyback entered, a series of torches along the walls of the den lit themselves, creating a cosy, welcoming space. There was even a fire with a pewter cauldron hung over it, brimming with something that smelled thick and savoury. A wooden table beside the fireplace was laden with food of all kinds, freshly killed and skinned game, bowls of nuts and berries, mushrooms, nettles, and bread. The sides of the cave had been carved out into shelves and hollows full of books and scrolls. There were a few wooden stools scattered about, and Greyback gestured that Remus be seated. Remus sat, staring about. Further back, hidden in the shadows, he could smell a bed, or at least the place Greyback slept. More distracting, though, was the smell of the stew. Remus had taken most of his meals cold over the past week and half in the dark. The delicious smell of a hot meal threatened to overwhelm him. He watched his captor take a porcelain bowl from a shelf and ladle a small portion of the stew from the cauldron, then pick up a spoon and carry it over to him. Greyback handed him the bowl and Remus took it, still unable to take his eyes off Greyback. His shape filled the entryway, hard, muscular, and unmoving. His coarse dark hair was pulled back in a knot, and his yellow eyes bore down on Remus, both curious and challenging at the same time. Despite his larger-than-life demeanour, there was also a quietness about him that Remus had only seen in wild animals, a still silence which promised something more sinister, like a spring-loaded trap. Greyback took a seat opposite Remus, hands on his knees, and nodded at the bowl of stew warming Remus's hands. "Eat," he said. Without hesitation, Remus did not know yet if he was following orders because he had to or because he wanted to. He scooped up some of the stew and put the spoon in his mouth. He could have cried. It was the most delicious thing he'd ever tasted, hot and full of flavour, some kind of dark meat and rich onion. He chewed as instructed before swallowing hard. Greyback licked his sharp-pointed teeth. "Good cub." Remus ignored him and continued to eat, suddenly starving hungry. A poem he'd once read popped into his head, like a warning. Though goblins cuffed and caught her, coaxed and fought her, bullied and besought her, scratched her, pinched her black as ink, kicked and knocked her, mauled and mocked her, Lizzie uttered not a word, would not open lip from lip, lest they should cram a mouthful in. Of course that was goblins. You mustn't eat food given to you by fairies or goblins. There was nothing he'd read about werewolves. But then, what had he ever managed to learn about werewolves? Greyback watched him a while longer as they were sitting down to supper together, like old friends. He waited until Remus had almost finished eating to speak. "Picked on Gaius in the end, Interesting, that. I thought perhaps Castor." "He was being cruel," Remus answered. "He's a good cub, beautiful wolf, powerful, but he has a few things to learn about leadership, that I'll grant you. What do you think of my other children, Remus finished eating. He swallowed and sucked on the spoon thoughtfully before setting it back in the empty bowl. He looked Greyback in the eye. "I feel sorry for them." "Sorry?" "For the way they live. There's no dignity in it." Greyback's eyes gleamed. "Dignity. What a delightful creature you are, Remus Lupin. Yes, dignity. That's exactly the word. Exactly." Greyback was stroking his beard thoughtfully. "It is a temporary situation, of course. When the war is won..." "When the war is won," Remus said steadily, "werewolves will be more hated and feared than ever before, because of what you've done, because of your crimes." Greyback tossed his head and laughed, showing long yellow teeth. "Truly delightful, cub. I worried that so long in that cell might have softened you, but..." Greyback raised a bushy eyebrow, and Remus felt an unpleasant wriggling inside his brain, as though someone was swirling their fingers through his thoughts. He screwed up his face, and Greyback gave a low chuckle deep in his throat. "No, still unbroken. My good, strong cub." Remus stared at him. The wiggling sensation stopped. "You mean," he breathed, "you didn't want to break me?" "Of course not," Greyback spat scornfully. "Is that what you think? Are these the vile lies spread about me? Why would a father wish harm upon his children?" Remus cocked his head. You tell me. Why would you attack a 5-year-old? Why have me locked up? Trivia. Greyback waved a long-nailed hand dismissively. These are not the questions you want answers to. Don't pretend. How do you know what I want? Remus felt his temper rising and struggled to keep it under control. He tried to hang on to the feeling of power he'd taken from Gaius, to soak up the magic he could feel in the earthen walls of the den. I know everything about you, Remus Lupin. He looked at him with razor-sharp eyes once more, and Remus felt that unpleasant shuffling through his thoughts. No, that's not fair. Remus shook his head, trying to build up a wall against Greyback. You're using legilimency. A wizard trick. Wolves do not read minds. Wolves see souls. It sounded like the same thing to Remus. Greyback's lips curled into a wicked smile once more. No, Remus Lupin, it is not the same. One can change one's mind, after all. Remus Lupin might sympathize with his packmates one day and revile them the next. That is the mind. But Remus Lupin's soul... Greyback closed his eyes and inhaled, as if Remus smelled particularly delicious. Stop it! Make me. Remus tried. He tried very, very hard, forcing the magic within him back out, through his eyes, through his thoughts. It seemed to work. His mind calmed, and Greyback leaned back, looking pleased. Remus was so confused now. He didn't want to please Greyback. Not ever. You are perfectly right to hate me, you know, Greyback said, stretching his arms out, rolling his shoulders as though he were preparing for bed or a fight. It is natural to resent one's father. You're not my father, Remus thought in the part of his brain where he still felt like himself. I've never had a father and I've never needed one. Answer my questions, Remus said as forcefully as he could manage. If you care so much about me, like a father, then why turn me? Why hunt me down for years, then stick me in a cage the second I show up? Greyback was laughing at him again, rows and rows of teeth, long red tongue. You can thank Lyle Lupin for your transformation. Right, Remus pulled a face. Awfully human, isn't it? Revenge. Self-preservation, Greyback countered, scratching behind his ear amusedly. Lyle had ideas about how my family should be treated. Uneducated ideas. He needed to learn. Then why not attack him? Because he was weak, Greyback hissed. I could smell it on him. No backbone at all. A hypocrite. And I was proved right. A better man would not have abandoned his pup and his bitch, though perhaps I ought to thank him. He destroyed himself before any of that weakness could creep into you. He licked his lip. It's become my motto. Get 'em young, grow 'em strong. Remus felt like throwing up. He hated Greyback so fiercely it was as if his insides had turned to bile. If you believe that, he carried on stoically, mouth full of saliva, making his words thick and sloppy, then why wait so long to find me? You could have snatched me out of the home any time. I considered it. Greyback nodded, tilting his head thoughtfully. I took Livia when she was barely speaking, Castor and Gaius when they were tots. But you were a different case. Dumbledore had his paws all over you before Lyle was even in the ground. I knew what that old codger was thinking. His own pet werewolf, his own tamed beast, all trained up and given a head full of wizard tricks and wizard lies. An educated monster. He licked his lips lasciviously. I knew all of this and I thought, why not? Let the cub come to me when the time was right. Let him learn what he can learn of the wizarding world, and we shall see then which side wins out. Side? You mean you or Dumbledore? Nature or nurture? Greyback sniggered. Remus recoiled, disgusted. So I'm an experiment? In a manner of speaking. Remus finally tore his eyes away, unable to stare into Greyback's laser beam gaze any longer. His eyes caught on the bookcase to his right. They were all the classics. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Island of Dr. Moreau, The Count of Monte Cristo. "And the cage?" he asked shakily, staring at the gold lettering on each leather-bound book. "Was that part of the experiment?" "It was clear that you'd grown too reliant on the tricks Dumbledore taught you," Greyback said, as if it were perfectly reasonable. "You were confined only as long as was necessary to ensure that your true gifts were strong enough to shine through. And they were, cub. Look at you now, just blistering with power." Remus looked up at him finally, meeting those wolfish yellow eyes once more. Fine then. If he was so powerful, he could use it. Burning with bitter, acrid hatred, Remus pushed out once more, focusing as sharply as he could on Greyback's body. Make him weak. Make him hurt. Greyback straightened his back in his stool and closed his eyes, grinning as though Remus were caressing him, not firing every foul thing he could. Then the werewolf raised a hand, and Remus saw that it was trembling, very slightly. Still, Greyback was incredibly powerful, and Remus could feel his own magic countered and blocked. Worth a try. "Very good, Remus Lupin," Greyback said after a time, his voice a little more hoarse than it had been. "Very good, cub," he sighed. "Enough for tonight, perhaps. We'll speak again." Remus stood quickly, feeling as if all this time he'd been weighed down on the stool, and now the weight was gone. "One moment." Greyback rose as well and pushed past Remus into the shadowy sleeping chamber behind. He returned seconds later with a large grey fur and handed it to Remus. "A gift, cub. Welcome to the pack." Remus took it and held it over one arm cautiously. It was beautiful, the soft fur silver and black under his fingers. "I can go?" he asked, glancing at the den mouth, now unguarded and open. He was suddenly nervous. "Of course. You know the way. You are not in the wizard world now. You are free. Go where you please. Return to the pack, or else, if you prefer to sleep here." His face turned hungry again, his smile mocking as he stepped aside and gestured toward his own bed. Remus's stomach turned again, and he backed out of the den as quickly as he could. He stood outside by himself for a long time. Thought of apparating, of getting out of there as fast as he possibly could, going home to Sirius and London and his friends, occurred only fleetingly. Night had fallen in the forest. Remus breathed in the lovely air and looked up at the fine lights in the sky. Owls swooped overhead on the hunt for prey. Foxes crept through the underbrush. Moles ploughed through the soil beneath his feet. He felt as much a part of this place as they were, a natural creature, coming to life. A cool breeze rustled the leaves above him, and he shivered. Without thinking, Remus pulled the fur cloak over his shoulders, wrapping it tight round himself. It felt good, like a second skin. He breathed and exhaled once more, to savour the peace and quiet of being alone. Then he turned away from the den and returned to his pack. Things changed after that, of course. By the time Remus returned to the pack that evening, he already had a new place in the hierarchy. Gaius had been freed from his prison, and he did not meet Remus's eyes, did not challenge him, just slunk away to his corner. Livia made it clear that Remus now outranked Gaius by approaching first and stroking his new furs, purring with joy. "Beautiful," she said. "Beautiful." And when it came time to settle in and sleep, Remus had his pick of anywhere he liked on the crypt floor. This had to be a carefully thought-out decision. Sleep beside Livia, the alpha bitch, and what was that saying? It could certainly tell Gaius where he stood. It's what Moody would suggest, if Moody had half a clue how to conduct himself in such a situation. He had reservations about Castor, too. For one thing, instinct told him to side with the handsome young man, and he knew that it wasn't entirely to do with the fact that Castor had helped him. Remus was used to the scent now, but that didn't make him any less attracted. For another thing, Castor was clearly a dissenter. Siding with him might give rise to suspicion from the other members of the pack. But he was so tired and sleepy, and he'd already made so many life-altering decisions already. So he chose Castor, who felt safe at least. Remus would have to beg forgiveness later. In the days that followed, Remus got to know the pack not only by scent and as his fellow outcasts, but as individual people. Plenty of them, like Jeremy, were recent converts, teenage runaways, disowned children of shamed wizarding families. All of them had difficult stories of hunger and suffering and terrible abuse. For the first time in his life, Remus felt he had a privileged childhood. So what if Matron was a stone-hearted old cow who hated children? He'd had a roof over his head. Some of them were kind and funny. Some of them were silly and immature. Some of them were sad and shy. Every day Remus grew more desperate to help them, to find a better place and a better life for each and every one. But of course they didn't all have the same story. Some of them were not with Greyback for protection or shelter. Some of them were really there for revenge. They believed in their father's philosophy wholeheartedly. Murder for them was not a crime, only the nature of a predator. The world owed them blood, and they were going to take it. I believed it too, Castor said the next morning. He had offered to show Remus their hunting trails in the forest. They caught rabbits and other game using instinct and magic. I believed everything he said, for a long time. He's the only teacher I ever had. But you changed your mind? Remus asked, half hoping, because he still wasn't sure about Castor's motivations. Yes, Castor replied, not noticing Remus's trepidation. It was a slow process. What triggered it? Remus was puffing a bit to keep up with Castor, who was lithe and muscular, the epitome of good health despite his scars. Not one thing in particular, Castor said, stopping still and looking around, as though he caught a scent. He seemed to think better of it and carried on walking, head held high, eyes sharp. He was so natural and relaxed in himself. Remus didn't think he could ever be like that. It vaguely made him think of Sirius, except of course Castor talked a lot less. You had to really drag answers out of him. Nothing in particular, Remus panted. Something must have... Books, Castor said, striding ahead on the trail of something. Books? Father encourages us to educate ourselves, to develop independent thoughts, and I did. It is the way of nature to rebel against one's father. That sounded eerily like Greyback. Castor often did that. They all did. They spoke with one voice, and it was always his. But if he encourages that, then why haven't more of the others... I said that we are encouraged, not forced, Castor said, a small ironic smile playing on his lips. Oh, Remus said. He remembered Livia quoting Plato to him. Being educated didn't mean you all came to the same conclusions. I listened to what you said too, Castor said finally. When I was trapped by the Dryad in Scotland, I knew you were my enemy, but I didn't want to harm you. And then I realized I didn't want to harm anybody. I think we can live in peace, away from mankind, as other creatures have learned to do. Is that really what you want? Castor put a hand out quickly and crouched low. There was a rabbit not 5 feet away. Remus held his breath and watched as Castor crept forward slowly, whispering a calming incantation. When he reached the creature, it hopped dozily into his lap. He stroked it softly for a moment, still whispering. Then he broke its neck. Remus wanted to be disgusted, to feel sorry for the rabbit, but he could already smell the blood and his stomach growled. Castor smiled at him, greyish eyes lighting up. He held out the rabbit, blood sliding down his wrist. For you, Remus Lupin. Remus was flattered. Jeremy showed Remus some of the pack's gathering techniques which basically amounted to theft. There were towns around the outskirts of the forest, and all they needed to do was apparate there, find an empty house, which could be done by scent. They were standing in the bedroom of one such house when Jeremy spilled the whole truth about the pack's part in the war. If Remus hadn't been bothered by a rabbit being unceremoniously slaughtered in front of him, then burgling a house wasn't going to curl his hair. In fact, it brought back a few fond memories of his criminal youth. Still, he really didn't participate, just nosed through the clothes in the wardrobe while Jeremy searched for jewellery in the dresser. The way I see it, Jeremy said cheerfully, Greyback might be a bit full of himself, bit high and mighty, but he's done a lot for me and plenty others. He does more than anyone ever has since I got this bloody bite. Have you done any self-educating stuff? Remus asked casually. Not for me, Jeremy said. Never much into reading. Preferred Quidditch. Ugh, Pearls, Jeremy tutted, lifting a knot of them out of a green velvet box. Hate the way they feel in your hands. My mother always wore them. Pure blood heirloom. You're a pure blood? Remus turned round, mildly surprised. Nah, mother is. Dad's a mix. Doesn't mean much anymore. I'm worse to them than a pure blood now. Bastards. He slammed the drawer shut angrily. That's one of the things Greyback's right about. They deserve what they're getting. Who does? The purebloods. What do you mean? Remus knew he sounded stupid, but he was genuinely confused. He'd always been told that some of Voldemort's greatest allies were the pureblood houses, that it was the half-bloods and the Muggleborns who he targeted. He said as much to Jeremy. Oh yeah, Jeremy nodded blithely. We've done one or two of those, but most of the time we're really a scare tactic to keep the old families in line. Remus pressed for more information, and Jeremy, who'd been eager to do anything he could for Remus ever since the Gaius incident, was all too happy to elaborate. Voldemort was using the werewolves as little more than hired muscle. If any of his influential, wealthy supporters started questioning him a little bit too much, started having their doubts, then all it took was a visit from Fenrir Greyback and a few of his mad, feral acolytes to get anyone back on the same page. Seen loads of mentions lately, Jeremy cackled with laughter. He caught the look Remus was giving him. Oh, what? I told you. They deserve it. They shouldn't have gone over to his side in the first place. So, wait, you don't even support Voldemort? Remus gaped at him. Course not. He's a right weirdo. Scares the shit out of me, to be honest. But, you know, I didn't choose this side. It's just a hand I got dealt. But if you did have a choice, There is no choice, Remus Lupin, Jeremy said fiercely, the voice coming out of his mouth wasn't... That voice coming out of his mouth, which wasn't his own. There is the pack. We can trust no one else. You must get used to it if you want to be one of us. And that was as far as he could get with any of them. After a certain point, they all reverted back to the same old script. Greyback was their leader, and even if they did not agree with him in everything, most of them felt indebted to him and trusted him before anything else. By daylight, Remus was never sure if he could really trust Castor or Jeremy, or the others. Even Castor, who was interested in hearing what Remus had to say, and who was determined to convince the others to withdraw from the war. It's not an easy thing, Castor tried to explain, to realise that our father is wrong, that we must have no part in any wizard affairs, least of all the war. It would mean splitting the pack. Can you do that? Remus asked, impressed. Castor gave a small shrug of his shoulders. Perhaps. Helpful. Remus expected to see Greyback again, now he'd been fully initiated, but the pack father stayed strangely remote. He occasionally summoned Livia, who Remus learnt had been with him the longest, almost all of her 30 years. Remus was shocked to learn her age. She seemed at once too young and too old. Otherwise, Remus was left to his own devices. He could have left whenever he liked, that much had been made clear, but he'd told the others in the pack that he had nowhere else to go, like them. He needed their trust, and for that they needed to be able to relate to him. So he never tried to sneak away and send a message to the Order. He wasn't even sure if that was possible, but he didn't try. He knew he might never have this chance again, and, after all, it was what Dumbledore had bred him for. Oh, for fuck's sake, Remus. As far as Dumbledore and Moody and Ferox and every other adult who liked pushing Remus round their chessboard was concerned, he wasn't exactly where he was supposed... He was exactly where he was supposed to be, and he wasn't miserable. He was lonely, of course. He longed for Sirius like a missing limb, and he'd have done anything for a shower, a cigarette, and a bar of chocolate. But the forest had begun to feel like a place he belonged. The other wolves felt like family. His mission grew clearer every day, and he knew he couldn't leave. So he stayed in plain sight at all times, and didn't speak a word about his friendships and connections back home. Friendship was different amongst the werewolves. Pack solidarity was everything, and Remus felt it too. Sometimes he thought he would die to protect them, even Gaius. The only feeling that had ever come close to it was when the Marauders were in their animagus forms back at Hogwarts, and Remus supposed that made some sense. Sex was different with them too. Midway through the month, Remus noticed a few pack members pairing off, vanishing into the woods for an hour or so, returning with that all too familiar scent. It was obvious what they were all doing, but no one seemed to mind or take much notice. It was just another instinct they all accepted and followed without question. The desire grows stronger as the moon approaches, Castor explained as they lay in the crypt one night, trying to ignore the quiet gasping and fumbling around them. I never noticed before, Remus lied, staring up at the ceiling. If you choose to mate, Castor whispered, choose wisely. They look up to you. They will notice favoritism. No, Remus said. I'm not... I have somebody already. A human? Yes. Then you plan to return, Castor finished. He sounded so sad about it. Remus wanted to turn and apologize, comfort him somehow, but that was dangerous territory and he knew it. The air was already thick with lust and he didn't know what he'd do. I have to, eventually, Remus said. But I want to make sure you're all safe first. We will survive without you, Remus Lupin, Castor returned, his voice no longer its usual calm, steady timbre. You're not our leader yet.
He would do anything to return to Sirius, except return to Sirius.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the chat has been, like, blowing up.
Yeah, I've been glancing at it. It's, we definitely have to address this. Greyback is not as smart as he's depicted in this.
That was, like, bells off immediately as soon as I was like, there were books and scrolls. I'm like, bullshit, Greyback does not read books, and he doesn't read classic effing literature. No way.
It was funny, though. Those are some of the books we were talking about reading.
I know, that was pretty funny.
I was telling you the other day that you should read Jekyll.
The way I set down my phone, did I set it down fiercely?
You set it down with purpose.
Greyback does not read literature, like,
I could see Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I mean, that's kind of...
I don't think Greyback reads at all. That's, like, I don't think he reads anything. I hate that he's being portrayed
like that
as...
person that starts eating the book. How long until I get smarter?
Yes! That's Greyback. That is him. Like, I hate that he's being portrayed as, like, this supremely evil, calculating dude. And I'm like, he's evil, but he's not calculating and brilliant. He's just disgusting.
They got the disgusting part down, though. I was thoroughly creeped out by Greyback this whole chapter.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, come on. First, he wants them to call him father. I think someone actually said it in the chat about him, like, wanting to call him father, and then he's like, but you can come share my bed if you'd like, Remus Lupin.
Well, yeah.
What? Pick a lane, man.
Well, it's got to do with, I think, his whole thing of being, a pedophile to a degree. There's some definitely grossness going on. How many times is Remus going to point out how handsome Castor is?
Yeah, he's mouth breeder and evil for sure. I think that put it...
Greyback?
Yeah.
We get it. He's really attracted to him. You'd think Sirius would be the only one in his mind. I can see where this is going.
Cheating.
I think he's going to cheat on Sirius. He's definitely going to sleep with him.
God, I feel so bad for Sirius.
I do too. I do too. I feel really
story,
bad for
I'm just
Sirius.
like, oh, Sirius, you deserve better.
Yep.
Get yourself a Grant.
Don't you think him and Grant should date?
Yeah.
That's what should happen. Him and Grant should date. I just... With this chapter was... And he couldn't get a message to the Order? Really? I think you could.
Right? Can he do a Patronus at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they broke his wand.
Oh, yeah.
But he can do the fancy wandless magic.
No, he
also...
can, but he can't. It's
also...
like a in the moment thing.
Now, all of a sudden, like, wolves can read people's souls?
Right.
What the F?
I don't know.
Oh, we don't do legilimency. We read your soul. Like, Greyback is not that accomplished at magic. I refuse to believe that Greyback has all these ridiculous powers. BS.
Yeah. Maybe it goes along the same vein that, like, people say that dogs can sense good people. Like, your character. You know, if a dog instantly doesn't like someone,
Dan
you should
just
be suspicious.
Dan said that.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dogs are good
Yeah.
at blah blah blah. He's trolling him. Well, but then why does Remus say, like, he feels like somebody's shuffling through his mind and filtering through his thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at this point, I assume that he's just trying to get, like, the memories of him and Sirius.
Either way, it's some kind of weird pseudo legilimency shit. I mean, he could just be manipulating him, but I'm just sitting here going, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, maybe he's just maybe he can just, like,
or is he using
make it feel like he's tickling your brain, but he can't
or is
really
he
do anything.
Using legilimency, but he's calling it something else?
Maybe. You think he has a wand up his sleeve? No one else can use wands, but he still uses a wand.
Yeah, I mean, he gets
Kind
a
of
wand
like
in book 7.
Voldemort condemns all half-bloods or half-breeds, but he himself is a mudblood.
Dan said these wolves are more vampire than werewolf.
Kind of. Just
They have
hanging
all
out
these supernatural powers
Yeah.
that are just, like, crazy.
If you wanted to write about vampires, just write a vampire story. All right. Make it in, we met that one vampire at Slughorn's Slug Club.
Sanguini.
Yeah. There you go. You just have a person, and then it's total free range for whatever you want.
Yeah, there's
no
not
canon to be questioned.
Also,
go for that.
Again, we had digs at Dumbledore too. Like, Remus even said, it's what Dumbledore bred him for.
Yeah.
Dumbledore did not do that. Remus, fuck off with your criticism about Dumbledore. It's really starting to piss me off. I'm not gonna lie.
As a Dumbledore fan, I'm hurt.
I'm insulted with his perception of Dumbledore. Where I am on this chess game, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Really? You're just justifying the fact that you want to jump this dude's bones and you don't want to leave.
Furry vampires, yes.
Like,
Wolves do seem more powerful than Dumbledore. At this point, I'm pretty sure the wolves seem more powerful than Voldemort.
That's what I'm saying.
Voldemort should be working for Greyback.
Right. Why? Yeah, right. Why hasn't Greyback just annihilated Voldemort already? For God's sake.
Jump his bones. Yeah, pack connection, their auras. I don't know. I don't know. Things are messed up. I think this person...
Remus tells Harry how much Dumbledore's trust meant to him, so it makes no sense. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This shitting on Dumbledore stuff is just... Oh my god, it's pissing me off.
But I think maybe the author missed the point of, like, the whole thing where Snape says, you raised Harry for slaughter.
Yeah.
But he only did that because of the prophecy. Like, he wouldn't have done that unless he knew that it was the best chance at defeating Voldemort.
And doing that was extremely painful for Dumbledore. To do those things, and Dumbledore loved Harry and cared about Harry. It's not just he raised him as a pig for slaughter and that's it because it was a
That's what I
game.
mean. He doesn't raise these child soldiers like all the Order of the Phoenix aren't, picked and bred.
Yeah, and Remus is taking this like
Harry just accidentally became that.
Right.
It
could
Dumbledore
very well
did
have
do
been
that, but it was because that was
the prophecy.
Yeah.
Could have been Neville.
Exactly.
Like, based on what Greyback said about letting Dumbledore raise Remus and Remus being used by Dumbledore, it's very much like Harry being raised for pigs to slaughter.
Yeah.
For the greater good, suffering must take place. It's still justifying a child to die or suffering.
I mean, yes and no, but the thing is, we haven't really seen Dumbledore at all. Like, Remus chose all of this.
And you also have to remember
Unless
that
maybe Dumbledore's in there, like,
Dumbledore,
playing with his thoughts. I don't know.
Dumbledore
His mind.
did all of this in mind. Dumbledore did all of this in mind that by the time they're doing their Horcrux stuff, Dumbledore already knows, or at least very strongly suspects, that there is a Horcrux inside of Harry and knows that to destroy that Horcrux, Harry has to die. And when they get to King's Cross, Dumbledore's like, you did it, you can go back. So part of Dumbledore maybe thinks that, yeah, Harry's gonna die, but he might be able to come back if the Horcrux is killed. So yes, he raises him like a pig for slaughter.
I can't remember. Did he know? But did he know that Harry would have to die before the Horcrux? Because he didn't know about the Horcrux until, like, what, book 4?
He knew the Horcruxes were a thing when he gets the diary in 2.
Okay.
Then I think he gets all of his, like, hardcore confirmation and stuff when, you know, Harry can speak Parseltongue, and then everything that happens in book 5 when Harry is like, I was the snake, I was in his head, all this stuff. I think Dumbledore put it all together, like, Harry's a Horcrux. But this whole situation with Remus Lupin, he's literally said 2 words to Dumbledore. This whole book.
That's what I mean.
Like,
Dumbledore has done nothing, and where he is, Dumbledore has had no influence on. He has chosen to go on this mission. He chose to do everything. Well, I guess Moody kind of came and sent him on this mission, but still.
Right.
He was the one that said, I want to go infiltrate Greyback.
Yeah, he's the one who said to the one, like, occasionally talked to Dumbledore, he was like, I want to do this. I want to go after the werewolves. And Dumbledore was like, oh, you're too young right now. Like, now all of a sudden it's, oh, Dumbledore has bred me for this.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. What?
That's right. It's the memory of Slughorn.
Yeah, the Slughorn. Yeah, that's the solid confirmation.
He didn't even know that he was raising Harry for slaughter until that. Probably after that, because then he had
I think he always knew that he was raising Harry to face Voldemort and potentially die.
Well, yeah,
to defeat
potentially.
Him.
It was more of raising a soldier and less of, just, you gotta just go die for me, bud.
I think even before the memory, though, I think Dumbledore knew, but the memory was confirmation.
Yeah.
Dumbledore knew, but he needed that.
Yeah.
Book 2, it is heavily implied. I think the memory is the confirmation, but book 2 is when Dumbledore has the Horcrux in his hand, and he's like, there's my evidence. He's making Horcruxes. He has made Horcruxes. And I think the memory was just further evidence and proof. But I think he suspected when Tom goes to visit him and asks for the job. I think he suspects. And then his suspicions are aroused even higher in book 1, where they're like, he didn't really die. He just kind of, like, vanished somewhere.
Yeah.
And then in book 2, he gets the diary, and Dumbledore's like, yep, this dude making Horcruxes.
I guess it's up to interpretation when he, like, knew for sure that Harry
was a Horcrux? Like,
that Harry had to die.
Oh.
In order to stop Voldemort and destroy the Horcrux. Maybe Dumbledore went on the search for all the Deathly Hallows so that Harry could master death and wouldn't have to die. Maybe Dumbledore was being a good guy and not selfish.
Well, I think Dumbledore.
I'm just joking
I
about
think
that.
Dumbledore knew the first time he heard the prophecy.
Hmm.
I think Dumbledore knew the first time he heard the prophecy after the Potters are killed. He knew that Harry was going to have to kill Dumbledore or die to kill. Yeah, I think he knew.
Some werewolves may be made to other side. Yeah.
I mean, that is true. That does
I mean,
happen, but
Greyback. You know what would have made this whole thing with Dumbledore more believable is just
Harry was going to have to kill Dumbledore. Good misspeak.
if Dumbledore was the one who told Lupin about his father. Because then there might have been some context of, okay, maybe Dumbledore gave a specific version of Lupin's father so that he would, want that revenge on Greyback or hate his father and go more towards Greyback,
tell the Dumbledore truth.
Yeah. Tell him most of the truth.
Right.
The important truth.
Either way, I hate this. I hate Greyback being like this evil genius mastermind. Like, she wrote him creepy, which is good. He should be creepy.
Mm.
But he's not an evil mastermind.
No.
Not even close.
He's
just gross dude. That's about it.
Yeah. I guess he's like an evil mastermind in the same way that, like, Ted Bundy was an evil mastermind.
Yeah. Although I think Ted Bundy was smarter. Because Ted Bundy liked to read books. I'm just saying. Yeah, Remus was dying to look for Greyback to kill him. Now he's just loving being a werewolf.
It was just like that, too. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill him. Whole book. And he's there and he's just like, this is pretty cool, actually. I like this.
And I think the author is, like, putting it up there as the wolf in him is taking over his other brain. But it's just like, really? James and Sirius and Peter, nothing. Like, there's no real conflict.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oh, he thought about Sirius like every once in a blue moon. But Castor's really hot. Why aren't you conflicted?
But he doesn't have those serious wrists.
Yeah, they're too fat.
They're not pale enough.
Like,
yeah, there's some things just don't flow. Like, everything in the beginning kind of flowed, you got it, and then we reached a certain point where things are just kind of like the ideas are there, but they don't
execution.
Connect, or we're stumbling up some stairs.
Or down
we
some
just
stairs.
hit a dirt road. We're getting there. It's just kind of bumpy ride.
Should we see what happens next?
Yeah, why not?
His cheekbones aren't high and sharp enough. Let's see what happens next, guys, after this long rant.
Obviously, Lupin has no will. I mean...
Kind of, yeah. I mean...
That would have been a great theme of the book, but you gotta... Lupin had all the free will in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, now he doesn't. It would have been great if you have that comparison where you did have Dumbledore, like, manipulating him.
Yeah.
And then you had, Dumbledore manipulating him. Now you have Greyback manipulating him, and he has to, like...
Find his will.
Deal with this conflict, and maybe that's why he just struggles so much after Sirius's death or whatever, because he never feels like any of his decisions were his own.
This becomes so long that it's become bad. That's what Dan said. It started so good. All right.
It's like a lot of great series, you know? When it goes on too long, it just kind of ruins it.
Yeah.
You gotta know when to end it.
Which is why there are only 7 Harry Potter books.
Exactly.
Not 12. 13. Okay. Let's go. Chapter 161. The War. Blood Moon. I see a blood moon rising.
I was thinking more
I see werewolves on the rise. Don't go out tonight. Greyback's bound to get your life. There's a blood moon on the rise.
It's a better opening song than anything they could have put.
Content warning for Wolfie Gore.
Wolfie Gore?
That's what it says. Wolfie Gore.
What's different about Wolfie Gore from regular Gore?
Maybe it's fluffy.
Fluffy chunks of flesh. It's cute, but gruesome.
Oh my god. Alright, here we go. Remus had spent a full month in Greyback's pack.
Why?
So literally, he's been gone for a month? Oh my god, poor Sirius. Sirius, do not take him back when he comes back. Oh my lord.
I hope he just moved in with Grant. Said enough of this. I can't do this.
Please, for the love
dead.
of God.
I'm moving on.
Please. Dan Williams says that even though it's not part of the story, when you create a compilation of her songs, you have to put that one in there. That was a good one.
Definitely.
There you go. Sirius, Chris, and Grant. They should all just get a apartment together.
Yes.
Get
I forgot about Chris. Chris would be a great match for Sirius, too.
Right? Chris was so nice, and Remus treated him like such garbage. Like, that's how you treat someone as a crush on you? Like,
Remus treats everyone like garbage.
Okay, that's true. Okay. Alright. Remus had spent a full month in Greyback's pack before he was truly given a reason to leave.
Remus is Malfoy.
Don't insult Draco Malfoy like that. Oh my god. Draco Malfoy is not that terrible. No. No. Don't you dare.
Not near the end, but like book 4, 1 to 4. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan agrees. Draco's better than this guy.
Alright, I'm sorry. Continue.
I'm sure he's very nice to the Slytherin Quidditch team. I'm sure they got along great. He's nice to his mum.
Yeah.
Like, okay, anyway, focus.
Well, Pansy Parkins. Or not Pansy.
Pansy Parkinson?
Yeah. That's serious. The way he treated her?
We don't need to discuss Draco Malfoy
Okay.
right now. Remus had spent a full month in Greyback's pack before he was truly given a reason to leave. He woke late one morning to find himself almost alone. Confused, he sat up staring around. He'd grown used to having Castor and Jeremy nearby. He felt horribly exposed without their body heat. Father summoned them. Father summoned them. A voice came out of the gloom. Remus raised his palm to create a heat-free flame for light, as Castor had taught him. It was easier than Lumos, though not as bright. Gaia stepped out from the shadows of one of the chambers. He stared down at Remus. Father came this morning. Summoned Castor and Livia. Only them. I suppose Castor is forgiven now. Will they be back soon? Remus asked warily, drawing his cloak round his shoulders protectively. I don't expect so, Gaius mused. He was fiddling with something shiny, kept glancing down at it. They've gone to meet the Dark Lord. What? It's almost the moon. He'll have plans for the pack. Plans? Reality came clanging down on Remus's head like glass shattering, like a car crash. You know, Gaius said, apparently uninterested in Remus's crisis of consciousness, I always wondered why Father turned 3 males. I thought perhaps he wished us to learn to lead together, to share the burden of responsibility. But now I realize. He means us to compete. What do you want, Gaius? Remus stood up, squaring his shoulders to remind Gaius that he was bigger and stronger when he wanted to be. Want me to sing you another song? Gaius sneered at him, cheeks red. He backed away. You will not triumph, he said. He threw the shiny object down at Remus's feet before turning to leave, and it made a hard metal sound. It was Remus's pocket watch. Hoi! Remus yelled, stooping to grab it up, but Gaius was gone. Remus slumped against the wall, running his fingers through his grimy hair. His heart raced, his breathing...
What was that, Bailey?
Yeah. While he was licking his butt.
Ew.
Remus slumped against the... His heart raced, his breathing quickened, and he began to panic. Shit. Shit, shit, shit. Of course they were still working with Voldemort. Why wouldn't they be, Remus? Why? Oh, okay, just read the chapter. Oh my god. The war hadn't stopped simply because Remus was there. No shit, Sherlock. What'd you think everyone was doing? He felt stupid and naive. Thank God. Finally. Because you are being stupid and naive. And worst of all, he felt guilty. He was supposed to be on a bloody mission, but he hadn't been thinking of the Order. Not really. He'd been more concerned about protecting the pack than getting back to his friends, his true family. All this time, Remus had thought himself as a victim, when really he was the worst kind of traitor. He shrugged off his fur cloak. He didn't want to look like them. He badly wanted to see Sirius. After weeks of suppressing it, his longing burst up like a geyser, so that he couldn't get a grip on it and squash it back down again. Sirius would know what to do, or at least he'd make Remus feel better about everything. Remus looked down at his watch, the only connection he still had to his friends. The gold had lost its luster, and he rubbed on it with his... rubbed it on his filthy trouser leg to see if that helped. Then he opened and closed it a few times, running the pads of his thumbs along the smooth vine leaf engraving. It had stopped working the day he used it to escape his cell. He squeezed all the magic out of it like a sponge. Another betrayal. Once he'd at least calmed his breathing down... Jesus Christ, what I wouldn't do for a fag. Remus tried to think rationally. His first instinct was to get out immediately, just walk into the woods and disapparate. But then what? Explain to Moody and Ferox that while he'd had a lovely few weeks away, things had got a bit too scary, so he'd turned tail at the first opportunity. No. If Greyback was meeting with Voldemort, then that had to mean an attack was coming. Remus couldn't let that happen.
You done? Come here. Come.
He would wait at least to find out if Castor would tell him anything. In the meantime, Remus did his very best to conjure up a happy memory. He would need to send a Patronus as soon as possible. Brothers, sisters, gather near. Livia's voice inside his head had to be one of the least pleasant experiences Remus had since joining the pack. It worked, though. He scrambled up the stairs of the crypt into the ruined church where the others were congregating. Greyback stood by the pulpit, Castor and Livia on either side of him, backs straight and heads high. My children, Greyback addressed them all, raising his arms like an evangelist preacher. The moon approaches. Our time is near. There was a murmur of excitement at this. For many, the full moons represented a chance to be free, to be one's true self. Greyback raised a finger to silence them. He smiled paternally. I have spoken with our benefactor. This moon, we shall feast on our enemies. We've been given the gift of prey. Some of the pack members cheered and whooped, chattering with even more excitement. Oh no, Remus's stomach lurched. Oh no, oh no. Livia and Castor will lead you, Greyback said.
You will bring the girl child to me. The parents you may keep for yourselves.
More cheering. Not everyone. Remus saw a few of the younger ones glancing at themselves shiftily, and Jeremy's eyes were practically burning a hole in Castor's head. Not all of them, Remus thought. They can be saved. They can. Remus Lupin. A voice popped into his head. He blinked, stunned. It was Castor. It is not safe to speak of this here. You will join me in the forest. Remus looked over at Castor, who was staring blankly ahead, as always inscrutable. He hadn't tried communicating like that before, but the pack was close enough and the magic of the forest was pressing in, so he concentrated hard. Yes, I understand. Castor made no sign that he'd heard, so Remus just had to hope. Greyback left shortly after that, giving Remus a cruel wink as he passed.
Your time to shine, cub, he said.
Remus knew he ought to nod or something, but he was too tense and just stared stiffly back. Castor announced he was going hunting, and Remus quickly agreed to join him. Livia gave them both an appraising look.
Don't tire yourselves, brothers. We have such games ahead of us.
They walked through the woods in silence. It was late afternoon and quite mild for April, the sun lowering but still bright. They had very little rain so far this year, but that hadn't stopped the trees and plants round them from exploding into life. Everything was lush and green and bountiful, and as they approached a small clearing, Remus saw that the bluebells had begun to spring up, and the woodland floor ahead of them was carpeted in a glorious haze of soft mauve.
Won't you miss this?
Castor said quietly. He obviously judged them far enough away from Greyback. Yes, Remus replied. He meant it. He had hated nature all his life, even the forbidden forest. He loved London, the concrete and the pollution and the noise, but the past month had changed him, and he knew how much he would miss the peace and quiet, and feeling so close to the earth. But your time with us grows short, Castor said. I think perhaps all our time is short now. He sighed heavily and looked at Remus with completely human eyes, grey and penitent. I am ready to defy my father.
Do you mean, will you help me?
We shall help each other, for the good of the pack. I have a plan, Remus Lupin, but you must listen to me, and you must obey me. I need to know that you will do what needs to be done.
I will never kill for him, Remus said fiercely.
But you might kill, Castor responded, raising an eyebrow. It wasn't a question, it was a statement, and Remus didn't deny it. Thursday, 12th of April, 1979. There were no goodbyes, of course. Remus did not even know who was on their side, his and Castor's. No names were spoken, he just had to have faith. On the morning of the full moon, Remus crept as far away from the pack as he could to cast his Patronus. He hoped that the others wouldn't pick up on the smell, which was powerful and sure to attract attention. He'd never sent a message via Patronus before, and once again he regretted the creature's fearsome size and aspect. Hopefully it wouldn't be too terrifying for Sirius to hear Remus's voice coming from the giant silver wolf's jaws. He could only manage 3 words. Castle, tomorrow, dawn. And that was his escape route taken care of, if he survived the night. Castor promised, Remus made him swear on their very blood, that if Remus did not live, then he would get a message to Sirius and the Potters. There was no other way, Remus decided. He had to be there for the attack. The last time he'd warned the Order about werewolves, nothing had been done, so he would have to do it himself, and damn the consequences. Obviously he'd prefer not to die, though. An hour or so before moonrise, the pack apparated together. It was just as well that Remus hadn't run away to tell Moody at his first opportunity, because he had absolutely no idea where they were going. He was forced to side along with Livia, and they landed together on a soft, mossy patch of grass. Remus wrenched his arm away from her and stared round at his new surroundings. It was such a weird place. Just a flat plain of grass, a few trees, a fence. Ah. He realized stupidly that they were in a park. Man-made nature. The whole place smelled human and muggleish. The rest of the pack was arriving around them, one by one, with a crack and a thud. "That's the place," Castor said, addressing everyone. He pointed over the fence to a row of houses across the road. The park was in a quiet Muggle cul-de-sac, with the green door. Remus kept as close to the fence as he dared and peered over the building. Had his parents lived in a similar house once? It looked like the sort of place Hope belonged. It was a small detached house. The front door was a cheery shade of green, and the porch light glowed soft in the amber twilight. Remus could make out the silhouette of someone moving in one of the upstairs windows. The pale pink blind was drawn down, so he could only see shadows. That must be the child's room, he thought, with a terrible wave of nausea. He couldn't let this happen. He wouldn't. If he had to kill Livia, if he had to die himself, he wouldn't let... Wait a minute. A gust of wind blew a scent in his direction, one he recognized. He sniffed the air again. What was that? Something he knew? It smelled almost like Sirius. Almost. Old blood. Old magic. A relative? Not Regulus. He wouldn't be caught dead on a street this mugglish, nor either of his parents. It was feminine, too. It was more like Narcissa, or surely not Andromeda? He couldn't be sure, but he'd only met her once when he was 13. But she had a daughter who would be about 5 or 6 now. Heart pounding, Remus desperately wanted to get closer to find out more. Then, in an amazing stroke of luck, the green door opened, letting light out into the street. A man stepped out, carrying a shiny black bin bag. He walked to the end of the garden path, opened the dustbin lid, dropped the bag inside, then returned to the house. It was Ted Tonks. No, 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 Remus thought to himself. If something happened to Andromeda, to her little girl, Sirius would never forgive him. Remus didn't know if he would ever forgive himself. "Remus," Castor whispered from the bushes behind him. "It's almost time." Remus turned and nodded. He hoped this would work. He'd never been so close to praying in his life. A stab of pain shot through his back. The moon was rising. He backed into the park where a few of the others had curled up on the ground preparing for the agonies of transformation. Remus looked at Castor standing beside him. It was a peculiar sensation. He'd transformed in front of the Marauders before, but never with others who were experiencing the same thing. Castor caught his eye and seemed to understand at once. Reached out his hand. Remus took it gratefully and gripped it hard, clenching his teeth as the pain swept through him. Castor gripped back, sharing his suffering, but also lending strength. They both fell to their knees at the same time, and Remus remembered no more. The wolf stretched its limbs and sniffed at the night air. Prey, pack, magic. He rolled over in the grass, pleased to be free, unencumbered by human worries. His packmate nudged him, huffing softly, and he remembered. He had something to do. This was not a night for playing, or for hunting. The she-wolf and the one that hated him both snapped at the others, and the young ones ducked their heads, lowering their haunches. But he would not. He was not a cub. He was full grown. He was as strong as them. The packmate with the scarred nose smelled good. He was strong too. He growled at the others, so the wolf did too, puffing up his body and showing all his teeth so that they knew. The scarred one gave out a bark and turned away, running for the trees. Some of the others followed, confused. The dark wolf, the wolf who hated him, snarled and leapt at the scarred one onto his back. They grappled, turning over in the grass, growling and snapping. The she-wolf watched. She sat and yawned. She need not involve herself. The rest of the pack watched avidly, panting and yapping as blood was drawn. He wanted to help, to jump in and start biting, but the scarred one needed to win it himself. It was his fight. The scent in the air changed and the she-wolf stood, ears up, tail swishing. A human. They'd been heard. She began to stalk toward the fence, hunting, as the stupid human shouted in its stupid human language. Not knowing why, he howled, long and hard, loud as he could.
The she-wolf whipped round, growling fiercely at him, pulling rank, but he howled again. The human retreated fast. They knew now. They would bring back others. He'd endangered the pack. The she-wolf barked at the Dark One, but he was already pinned to the ground by the Scarred One. Victory. The young wolves looked up at the Scarred One now, sniffing at him and lowering their heads. The Scarred One barked, then climbed off the Dark One. He turned and began to walk away. Some followed. The pack divided. The she-wolf ran after the Scarred One to bring him back, to restore order, but she could not catch them. They were a new pack now. Unless she killed the Scar One, they would not follow anyone else. He wanted to go too. He wanted to run with them forever and be their leader and chase deer through the dark nights. But no, he had to do this first. He had to protect. To protect... What was it? It was so hard to think when the delicious scent of human meat was so close, coming in on all sides. The Dark One limped to its feet. Remus growled. It snarled at him, jaws frothing, eyes baleful. He remembered now. Protect the pack. He pounced, jaws wide and claws bared. All he knew was pain. Pain and blood as Remus's body pulled itself back into its human shape. He screamed and Gaius's blood ran down his gullet, rich and warm. It was in his teeth, under his tongue. It was everywhere. And Gaius's body lay there, limp and pale, throat dark and glistening. There was no time for shock. The moon was setting and people were coming, and Remus wasn't even fully human yet, but there was no time. He squeezed his eyes shut, gritted his teeth, and apparated. Crack. He landed flat on his face with a hard grunt. His ankle cracked sickeningly against a rock. He gasped, rolling into a ball, tears springing into his eyes as he vowed never again to apparate right after a transformation again. His whole foot throbbed, shooting all the way up his shin, making him feel giddy. He was still sticky with blood, and without any clothes on, all he could do was curl up in pain in the grass. Was he even in Cornwall? He couldn't tell. Where was the castle? Fuck! He sobbed, exhausted and defeated. Mooney? A shout came from up over the side of the hill. Remus rolled onto his back and closed his eyes, so relieved he thought he'd faint. Sirius! He called back as the heavy footsteps pounded closer. And then he was there, and oh God, Remus just about fell apart. Sirius threw his cloak over him and pulled him close and wrapped his arms round him. Remus clutched him back, trembling, the pain in his leg now threatening to overwhelm him. You came back? Sirius gasped, voice shrill. You came back? Course I did, Remus said woozily. Are you bleeding? Not my blood. And then everything was going dark around the edges, and he was so exhausted he closed his eyes, and nothing more.
So, I think the biggest issue I had with that is Remus can just apparate, make a Patronus without a wand, no problem.
Yeah.
Just in 30 days, you learned all that. A Patronus, which is considered one of the hardest spells to master.
Yes.
Some wizards don't even learn how to do it.
Yeah, some wizards can't even do a Patronus. But yet Remus can.
Without a wand.
Without a wand. And can
After
send a
30
message
days.
with it.
After 30 days.
After 30 days.
The whole, like, him having control, I guess the author kind of built up to that with when he's around other wolves, he has more control. Like when he was around the Marauders, he could actually remember what he was doing, and he was somewhat conscious for everything.
Yeah.
I think he describes it as like he was conscious for it, he just didn't have control. So maybe when he's around other wolves, he has more control.
2 seconds.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But I also just find it really weird that the little girl is Tonks.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking of that to myself, like when it first started. Oh, I wonder if it's Andromeda and Tonks, and making too many connections to Tonks here. It makes their whole relationship later on that much weirder.
Well, I don't think they're gonna have a relationship later on. I don't know. I feel like it's just not gonna happen now.
Yeah, but I mean, so far they've tried to keep everything outside of Remus and Sirius as canon as possible. Well, that's a lie. They started out that way. But now it seems like everything's just fair game. They're just kind of running with it.
What was the point of all that?
Yeah, he was like semi in control. Dan says that he's totally okay with it if they don't have a relationship.
Dan will forever hate that. What was the point of that? To split the pack? Like, what? To save them? I don't know. I just don't care, I guess. Maybe that's my problem.
I don't even know what information, like, Remus really got out of the month with the werewolves, other than he now doesn't have a wand and can do magic without one.
Crazy magic without one.
Yeah.
Like, Dumbledore invented sending a message with a Patronus. But Remus, an 18, 19-year-old wizard without a wand, can just do that shit?
Yeah. Yeah,
Give me
I
a
know.
break.
Is the only way to bring Sirius back into it? I mean, I guess. The other way would have been that he just goes back. Like, doesn't have to be a thing.
Like, maybe Greyback could have just said something really pertinent. Like, Remus overhears Greyback saying, "We're gonna hit this place next month." And then Remus is like, "Oh shit, gotta go. They're gonna hit this place. I gotta tell somebody."
Yeah, they just told it.
Oh, but no, because the Order doesn't care about werewolves. The Order didn't do anything last time because Dumbledore sucks, and it's all Remus's fault that all those people died last time. So he has to do it all himself this time.
Yeah, I know. The whole Remus never learning anything is hard. Yeah, he does know how they operate better than anyone now, but you're also right in that he split the pack, so there's going to be a whole new dynamic going on. Like, you know, everything's going to change. Who says it's going to be running the same way in a week? And we also, yeah, the werewolves are smarter than Dumbledore thought, and way smarter than we thought, too. Dan says, 3 rants from you. That's why he's subscribed.
Me?
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'm the one that tries to keep everything on the level, but I don't know. It's kind of falling apart.
I just needed to, like, walk away for a minute so I can...
No worries.
We can read one more and then probably call it good.
Smarter than JK thought. Yeah. Rowling didn't even know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm kind of out of it tonight.
I'm just pissed. Story is annoying the shit out of me.
We're almost done with it.
We are almost done with it.
I mean, if you wanted to take a break, there's always, like, we were talking about reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That could literally be done in a stream. That book is so short.
Part of me just wants to just get it over with and finish it, though. Just get it done.
I'm just saying, if, like,
I know.
you're overwhelmed by the writing, just blown away, you know, you want to really savor it. Like Remus savors that rabbit flesh.
Yeah. Caster's flesh. Tell me they didn't bone. I don't believe it.
Never know. And poor Sirius will never know either.
No. Till he gets a werewolf-only STD.
The werepeas.
The werepeas?
The werepeas.
Wolferia.
It's a bunch of little furry lumps.
Little furry lumps. Ew. Oh, I just don't even want to read this one. I feel like it's just gonna be... Oh my god. Werefleas. Mange.
Werefleas. All of Sirius's beautiful locks just start falling out.
Right, he just starts losing his hair. Should we just get into it?
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Okay. After this one, though...
Yeah, we need to find you a nice short one.
Fan fiction?
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, we were talking about Jekyll. That thing is like... I'd have to look it up. Yeah, it's like a couple thousand words. Like, that's a...
So, after this
30-minute
chapter, the next, like, 10 chapters just are like spring, summer, winter, autumn.
And then winter's coming.
So in 11 chapters, I think, will be the death of Lily and James.
Jesus, it feels like we've been waiting for the death of Lily and James forever.
I know. It's the one
Sorry
time.
to be like...
It's the only time in Harry Potter where I'm like, fucking die already! Oh my god!
Shakespeare shorts, yeah, we could.
Alright, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Brace yourselves, everyone. Chapter 162. The War. Mooney's Story.
No, is this chapter literally just going to be him retelling everything that happened?
I fucking hope not.
We read it.
I hope not.
Better just be Lupin told them what happened. Move on.
No serious warnings, but minor character death.
Minor character, okay. I don't care.
More Mooney. Ugh, it's so many. Okay, here we go.
I'll go check on him.
Okay. He came to in a small white room, with a low ceiling striped with black beams. There was a little square window, but the curtains were drawn over. Someone had washed the blood off him, thank goodness, though he could still smell it faintly, and taste it too. He was lying in a single bed, and other than a little bedside table with an old lamp on it, there wasn't much else in the room. The door was slightly ajar, and Remus could hear voices in the corridor outside. "Marlene's here," James' voice came through clearly. Should I let her up? Did you ask him any questions?" "Yeah, send her up. He's not awake," Sirius said, his voice sounding odd. "But it's definitely him. Has to be." "You sure?" "First thing he said when he landed was fuck, I'm pretty certain," Sirius snapped. "Fair," James replied without humour. He lowered his voice to a whisper. "Padfoot. All that blood. And with the attack last night. Let's just see what he has to say before we jump to any conclusions, shall we? Send Marlene up." "But if it's not safe..."
Then I'll stay in the bloody room. Can we please just get someone in to look at him? For fuck's sake, he hasn't even got a wand. Okay, James relented. God, Remus thought as shame settled over him like dust. They think I'm not me. They think I'm a spy. How bad had the war become in the month since he'd been away? He racked his brain quickly for a way to prove his identity. The thought of Sirius not trusting him was too painful to bear.
Really, maybe you should have thought of that before you were humping some dude wolf in the forest. Saying.
I was going to say, at least his suspicion is warranted.
There was a mess of footsteps in the hall outside, and finally the door opened. Remus tried to sit up at once, pulling himself up by his arms as Sirius entered the room. Padfoot, I swear it's me, it's Mooney. I helped you make the Marauders map, and we put those rose hips in Snivelis's bed, and we went skating on the lake at Christmas, and I hated it, but you were really good, and... Shh, Mooney, Sirius soothed, sitting on the bed carefully and placing gentle hands on his shoulder. Lie down, for fuck's sake. Godric knows what you broke, apparating like that, you silly sod. You know it's me. Remus gripped Sirius's arms, but allowed himself to be put back to bed. Of course I do. Sirius leaned over and kissed his forehead. I'd know you anywhere. Look, sorry about Prongs, he's just on edge. Things have been a bit... All right, give him some room. Sirius whipped round as Marlene stormed into the room, green healer's robes flying and leather bag in hand. She shoved Sirius off the bed and leaned over Remus, laying a cool hand on his forehead and looking into his eyes, her freckled face full of sweet concern. She smiled. Hello, sweetheart, she said softly. Where you been, eh? You've all had us worried sick. Hi, Marlene, Remus smiled back fondly. Did you qualify as a healer while I was gone? Hardly, she laughed. Still very much a novice, but I'm the best the order could do at such short notice, so... She straightened up, hands on her hips. Right, what's the damage? Hurt my ankle. Remus reached down to pull up the blanket over his sore foot. It looked awful in the light of day, all swollen and black with bruising. Sirius covered his mouth, but Marlene just tutted. Easy enough. She tapped it with her wand, and Remus felt a funny ticklish feeling before pop, and it was good as new. You still need some rest, Marlene cautioned. You're a legend, Miles, Remus said gratefully, and then began to cough, that rough, raspy bark he'd almost got used to now. Sorry, he spluttered, eyes watering. Got a bit of a cough. Sirius was wincing and looking more distressed than ever, hands still over his mouth. Marlene pulled down the bedsheets and lay her head directly on Remus's bare chest, listening. Bit of a cough, my arse, she said. She tutted, surfacing. You got a stonking great chest infection, is what? She began emptying her bag, pulling out ointments and potion bottles. I'll have to ask someone at St. Mungo's what's best for that. I haven't done infections yet. Now, Madame Pomfrey asked me to make sure you got this. It's her own sleeping draught. I'm working on one myself, but hers will be stronger. Don't give it to him yet! Suddenly James was in the room, starting forward with his arms out. Everyone turned to look at him, and he rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Sorry. It's just that I finally got a hold of Mad-Eye, and he's on his way. It's fine, Remus said to the room. Marlene tutted again. She set the potion bottle down on the bedside table. One of you make sure he drinks the whole thing as soon as possible, all right? She gave James and Sirius a severe look, and they both nodded earnestly. I have to go to work before I'm missed, she said, straightening up once more. She squeezed Remus's hand. So happy to have you back, darling. He squeezed back, feeling a bit better about everything. They cared about him. He was safe with them. He laid on his pillow and tried to focus on that feeling. James and Sirius stood about awkwardly. Hi, Prongs, Remus said, a bit wary. Hiya, Mooney, James smiled, his eyes tired and dark. You all right? Felt worse. James made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. Where are we, anyway? Remus asked, looking around at the poky little room. Cornwall, Sirius said. Remember the pub near the castle? Rented a room. When you got here, I didn't want to move you. Seemed like the best place. Out of the way. Does anyone else know? No, James said. Only us, Marlene, and Moody. Things have been hard. And with the attack last night, we thought... Attack? Remus sat up again as the events of the night came flooding back in a riot of blood and teeth and hair. Shit, what happened? Was anyone... Not on our side, Sirius said. That didn't make Remus feel any better, but he tried to look happy about it. He couldn't let his friends know just how blurry the lines between our side and their side had become for him. Mooney, James started. Last night, were you there? The door swung open once more, creaking loudly, and Alistair Moody came hobbling into the room, his face set with a look of grim determination. James and Sirius backed out of the way as Mad-Eye approached Remus's bed. Remus's first instinct was to duck under his blankets and hide like a little kid. Lupin, Moody nodded, his electric blue magical eye whirring in its socket, giving him a very thorough once-over. You made it back then? Yeah, Remus croaked. Moody held his wand up, pointing it in Remus's face. Oi! Sirius started, but James held out an arm to stop him. Moody fixed Remus with a very serious gaze. Mother's maiden name? Jenkins, Remus stuttered, terrified. Moody nodded and lowered his wand. No offence, he said, glancing at Sirius. Protocol. Right, Remus swallowed, heart pounding. How are you? Been seen to? Marlene was here just a minute ago, James said. She'll be back later. No one else, do you hear? Moody said. Not until I say so. We need to limit his exposure for now until the furors have calmed down. Until the furors died down. He waved his wand and a chair appeared from thin air. Moody sat down and looked at Remus once more. Potter, Black, you can go. No, Sirius said, raising his chin. His defiant look hadn't changed since he was 11. I'm not going anywhere. Moody gave him another look, his tongue playing in the corner of his mouth. Fine, he grunted. But keep your mouth shut. I don't want to hear a peep, you got it? I'd better go, James said, rubbing the back of his head again. Sorry, Mooney, I need to get home. Of course, Remus said, though he didn't really understand. Did James no longer trust him? James said something to Sirius before leaving, but Remus didn't catch it and didn't try to eavesdrop. He was too busy holding his nerve against Moody. He wasn't up for a battle of wills, not after the last few weeks. Not that he knew the building they were in was... Now that he knew the building they were in was Muggle, he felt the absence of magic more keenly. He'd been used to the enchanted forest with its unending pool of shared power. Back in the real world, everything felt so mundane. He felt weaker than ever and began to cough again. James left and Sirius handed Remus a glass of water. This can't take too long, Sirius said to Moody. He's supposed to rest after a full moon. Marlene said... Not a peep, Black, Moody snapped, his blue eye fixing Sirius with a hard stare, the normal brown one still watching Remus. Sirius was quiet, but he was clearly not happy about it. He folded his arms petulantly and looked away. Remus felt a rush of love for him, the spoiled brat. I was there last night, Remus said quickly. To get things moving. He thought it was probably best to be as honest as possible from the beginning. I was at the Tonks house. I know what happened. Well, most of it. Did anyone? One body recovered, Moody said. One of Greyback's. Gaius, Remus said. He wasn't sure how he felt. He'd killed somebody. Let's not start there, Moody said, watching his face. I want to start at the beginning. Where have you been for the past month? Leave nothing out. Remus was weak and exhausted and sore, but he was not an idiot. He left plenty out, but he also said a lot more than was probably safe. He didn't look at Sirius the whole time. He knew that would make things impossible. He explained how the pack had kidnapped him and locked him up for a week and a half, how he'd finally met with Greyback. He heard Sirius breathe in sharply at this, but Moody's expression didn't even flicker. He told them most of the things Greyback had said, though he knew none of it was useful to anyone except him. He confirmed that the pack had been working with Voldemort, keeping the old family scared enough to stay loyal. "You were in prison the whole time?" Moody asked. No. Remus twisted his mouth nervously. "They broke my wand, but I could have left at any time. I didn't because I thought... Well, I knew it was only a matter of time before they planned an attack, and I wanted to learn as much as I could." He kept his voice steady the whole time and hoped he was still a convincing liar. Moody did not comment. "And the attack?" "Right, yeah," Remus nodded. "I had to go with them because one of the other werewolves, he was planning to break from the attack. He wanted to be peaceful, to get away from Greyback. He was my ally." Remus felt Sirius's eyes on him and hoped it was all in his head. "So I helped him and he helped me. He led the others away and I stayed back to stop anyone from trying to attack the house." "While you were a wolf?" "Yes. I can think better when there are other wolves there. I tried to warn Mr. and Mrs. Tonks. I howled so they'd know they were in danger." "Ah, so that was you," Moody nodded. "Ted said something about that." "You've seen them. Are they okay?" "Shaken up, but no harm done." Moody gave a curt nod. "How many of Greyback's pack have defected?" "I don't know, at least half. Maybe there are 4 or 5 who are loyal." "Good to know. Can you give me names?" "They didn't use any names." Another lie, but he just couldn't do it. "Right," Moody nodded. He watched Remus for a bit longer. Then he sniffed and stood up. "Lie low for a bit, eh? I'll be in touch." He turned to leave. "Wait!" Remus reached out. Moody turned, a curious look on his face. Remus bit his lip. "The body," he said. "Gaius. That was me. I killed him." Saying it out loud made it distressingly real. He felt queasy and didn't think he'd be able to look Sirius in the eye ever again. Moody kept looking at him. He tilted his head. "While you were a wolf?" "Yeah." "And he was a wolf? Trying to attack a young family?" "Yeah, but..." "This is a war, Lupin. Get some rest. Don't dwell on it." And he left, and that was it. Everything Remus had put himself through for almost 30 days boiled down to a few key tactical points. He fidgeted with the blanket. It was old and bobbly and reminded him of the rough army-style blankets he'd grown up with. Sirius was still standing by, watching him, but Remus couldn't look up. He just couldn't. Thankfully, Sirius broke the silence first. "Got your Patronus? Bloody hell, where did you learn to do that?" "Oh," Remus nodded, still looking down. "Yeah, I don't know. I'd seen Ferox do it once." "Without your wand?" "I didn't need it. Not always." "Oh." More silence, and then... "I missed you so fucking much!" Sirius burst out, with such force and passion that Remus finally looked up at him. His eyes were wide and shimmering with tears. He looked as exhausted as Remus felt, and Remus realized that he must have been up all night too. "I missed you too." Sirius bolted toward Remus, arms out, but hung back at the last moment. Is it okay?" Remus nodded, reaching for him, and Sirius came over and enveloped him in a hug that went on for long, wonderful minutes. Remus felt as if he'd finally been given permission to exhale, and he closed his eyes and felt the warm, comforting weight of Sirius against him. "I'm sorry," Remus whispered into Sirius's hair. "I'm so sorry. I was gone for so long." Sirius pulled away finally, wiping his eyes briskly. "You better have this potion." He reached for the bottle and uncorked it. "Thanks," Remus said, too tired to argue. He took the potion and gulped it down in a few seconds. "Shall I let you rest?" Sirius asked anxiously. Remus shook his head vehemently. "No, please stay. Will you lie here with me for a bit?" "There's not much room." "Calling me fat?" Remus poked his tongue out, shuffling aside to make space. Sirius grinned at him and sat down. He put an arm gently round Remus's shoulder, and they lay on their sides, facing each other. "Does James hate me?" Remus asked finally. "What?" Sirius frowned. Oh God, he was so beautiful this close-up. How had Remus forgotten? "No, of course not. He's got a lot on his mind. His parents aren't well." "Oh no, what's wrong?" "I think they're just old," Sirius said sadly. "The war. It's been so much harder lately." "Please tell me." "You should sleep." "Please." Sirius sighed. He looked down, then back up, and his eyes were shining once more. "We lost the Pruitts. Gid and Fab." "No." "It was awful. 5 Death Eaters. 5! I can't believe it. Is Molly okay?" "I don't think any of us are." "Oh, Sirius." Remus hugged him again. "I wish I could have been with you." "I thought..." Sirius shut his eyes, then shook his head, hair rustling against the pillow. "No, never mind. It's over. You're here. You're safe." "I'm here," Remus repeated, feeling the sleeping draught start to kick in. Sirius stroked his hair gently. "Remus?" Remus shifted, making himself more comfortable. "Please call me Moony. No one has for so long." "Moony," Sirius whispered, leaned forward and kissed his cheek very gently. "I love you." "I love you too," Remus smiled, slipping into a warm and happy dream.
Once again, all Remus can do is say how attractive Sirius is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Remus, how could you have forgotten? Some
Back to using Sirius.
devilishly bad werewolf. Oh, sorry you joined late, Sarah, but you're here now. That's what's important.
I agree. Dan keeps bringing that up. Evan brings it up all the time about the African wizards that use wandless magic, but I agree with Maddie. His name should be Remus Wulfric Brian Dumbledore Lupin. The level of magic that he can accomplish.
The fact that, I saw Ferox do it once.
Right? I
So
just
then
saw
I
Ferox do it one time.
You know, if Remus still had his wand, okay, fair enough. I mean, Remus is a very talented wizard. Maybe he could pull off that sort of stuff.
can do a Patronus.
Yeah.
But he didn't even have his wand, and he'd never practiced doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's part of the wolf magic.
and that's
I
right.
guess.
Those wandless wizards train for that. They train for that for years to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for saying that our cat is pretty. Her name is Lola.
She was a show cat. She wasn't actually a show cat.
No.
She could have been.
I don't know. They probably wouldn't have liked her extra toes.
It's like when Fuzz joined that one time, just, that cat has thumbs. She does. She has mittens.
Also, thank you. Someone said again that they liked my moody voice. Everyone seems to really like my moody voice.
It's pretty awesome. It's how I picture the character.
Um,
Watching the movies, like, it threw me off. Like, no, that's not Moody's voice.
There would have been. I don't pretend to be an expert about Patronuses. Ah, they think Bobans is pretty too.
Oh.
Bobans! Bobans! They think you're pretty, Bobans! Wherever you are.
Yeah.
I don't know where she is.
She's probably in her basket on the porch.
Yep, she's probably on the porch. But
That's funny. Boban's, like, rarely shows up and people know her name
yep,
already.
couldn't be that I always say Bobans!
Well, she does. Like, you'll see her just peek her head out from behind the books.
I know.
She's our shelf cat.
Yes.
She likes to hide behind our bookshelf.
We have 4 cats.
So, let me just process this. Remus wants to protect everyone from the werewolves.
Yes.
But will not give Moody names when he asks for them.
He's a walking contradiction.
Like, what?
Right, and it's not even like he had a great relationship with all these werewolves. Like, Castor was the only one he had a relationship with.
And it was just because he was hot.
Basically. Well, he also wanted to, help Remus out. So.
Right, yeah. And break off from Greyback's pack.
Seemed like an alright guy. Could have been more.
That was as bad as Tom and Harry not telling the headmaster about the Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bad. Like, what? Yeah, but he could have given, like, the names of the other ones in Greyback's pack. He could have given him Livia. Like...
Yeah, like, she is 100% just demented.
Right? Give him Livia. Like...
She's Bellatrix levels of crazy.
Yeah.
She is not going to, like, come to the good side anytime soon. She's ride or die for Greyback.
And, Maddie says a chapter can't go by where Remus doesn't lie about something.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah. He's pretty much a chronic liar. He's meant to be a spy.
It's perfect for the job. He can just pull shit out of his ass all the time and just lie about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And James just... I mean, his parents are probably going to die from Dragonpox here pretty soon, yeah.
I kind of thought that's what was coming, and maybe that's why James was so on edge.
Yeah. That's what I thought, because I'm like, it's too early for Lily to be pregnant yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's got to be his parents.
It's not too early for his parents to die. Or fall ill, at
Dan
least.
says, okay, this Remus or Umbridge?
Ooh.
Umbridge, every time. Thank you.
At least Umbridge is entertaining.
Yeah, Umbridge is at least entertaining, and Umbridge isn't trying to bullshit people.
No, she's very honest about how evil... Well, kind of. She has all those cats up to put on this, like...
Facade.
So, maybe not fully, but yeah, she's definitely more upfront with who she is.
She's very blatantly racist. She does not hide that.
That's true.
I want
to see...
She also doesn't abuse anyone sexually or use them for sex. So that is also...
Except Filch.
Okay, maybe.
You know something was happening there.
Okay, maybe. But we don't have proof of that.
Deep, dark secret. She was in love with a squib.
I don't think she was in love with him.
That's why they had to keep it secret. Okay, she was fooling around with a squib.
Remus makes Umbridge look good. Like, there's so much cringe. Like, he didn't tell him anything. He's keeping everything a secret. Like, what the hell were you doing there the whole time? If you're not gonna... The point of the mission was to give information, and then Moody asks you for information, and then you don't give him any.
Right? Like, your whole time there was just a holiday. Very weird holiday. Choose one, Fred or George. I feel like that's a question that was asked of Rowling at some point. You can only choose one.
I
mean, it's hard to choose Fred or George, though. Because, like, they're really just one person.
Well, they're not, though.
Like,
Fred is the more outgoing one.
Well, yeah.
And then George is the more... Fred is the more outgoing one, and George is the more like in the back, lower key one, I guess.
It's just hard to imagine just sitting down having a conversation without both of them there. Like, they just play off of each other so much.
Yeah.
It's hard to see how a conversation would go with one person.
And after all that, we're gonna have sunshine and rainbows with Sirius and Remus now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sirius is obviously so devastated that Lupin's been missing, and Lupin's just like, he sees him and he's like, oh,
You're cute.
you're so sexy. I can't believe I didn't think about you the whole time I was gone.
Yeah, I know.
Like, what?
It's like a short-term memory.
He's just horny all the time for whatever, I think is all it is. I don't even think he loves Sirius.
No, definitely not. We've already established that. Sirius is in a no-love, abusive relationship. It's awful.
I'm just gonna look and see what the next chapter is here.
Right, you should just tell him how hot Castor is. Maybe Sirius will be down for a threesome. Who knows?
Maybe they can have...
Oh, that was almost bad.
That's why I went, ooh. That could have been very ugly.
It is funny. Jackson will mess with any of our other cats. He's like the man of the house. Except Lola. No one messes with Lola. She has established herself as like the queen bee.
Yes, Lola very much is so.
Even Bailey won't mess with her. I mean, Filter's a poltergeist? I don't know. I think Dumbledore didn't really force him to work like that. I think it's just hard for him to get a job. Dumbledore offered him a job. You know, he could go work in the Muggle world, but I mean, who wants to do that? Why be a janitor at a bank when you can be a janitor at Hogwarts? Which would you choose?
I'd
You
be a
can't do
janitor at Hogwarts.
Yeah,
At least I get to eat that delicious ass house elf food like all the time.
that's true. I mean, we don't even know if it's good though.
The house elf food?
Yeah.
Have you seen what Harry eats?
But have you seen what Harry eats when he's not there?
Saying those house elves
He's
are
eating
not...
floorboard cake just to stay alive. Harry
Yeah.
at that point would think anything's delicious. Anything that's warm and fresh.
No, not true, because he's had Mrs. Weasley's cooking.
Okay, touche. I guess we don't know how good her cooking is either.
It's good. Hermione really likes it.
That's true. Or was she just being polite? She didn't want
Bless
to insult her future mother-in-law.
I skimmed ahead to the next chapter.
I saw that. You were very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Molly is an excellent cook. I would eat at the Weasley's house any day.
Me too. Bacon sandwiches, mashed potatoes, all that.
We have to do food
Golden
shopping tomorrow. Do you
golden
want to get
snitch
mashed
cake?
potatoes and bacon? Just go crazy?
No, they describe the food here and there. Like, Not always at the feasts, but like there are times when like Hermione came up with a stack of toast.
I mean,
And Harry talks about like this was on the table and it was his favorite, but he didn't even want it because he wasn't hungry
That's
because
true.
he was too nervous
But
about
he-
Quidditch. So they talk about food.
yeah, but toast is toast. It's hard to mess up toast. Even if you burn it, you just take a butter knife, scrape off the burnt, and you have good toast again.
Don't say that in front of the giant squid. Toast
What?
is toast. The giant squid fucking loves that shit.
I know. I can't help but think, like, same time, poor squid, it's always going to be soggy and just disgusting.
Maybe he likes it that way.
I mean, obvious. It's the only way he knows it, but
I'm saying
maybe
they describe
maybe
the
they
toast
put a
as
magic spell on it so it can't get soggy.
I'm not saying that they describe the toast as amazing, but I am saying
No
that
soggy bottoms.
I'm just saying that there are more descriptions of the food other than just at the feasts. I just don't even know what to think about this last chapter other than God, I hate Remus so much. What a waste of werewolf plot. What was the point of any of that?
Right?
Well, I really want to know what was the point of any of that.
Had some bangers and mash at the Harry Potter World in Universal Studios with a big glass of butterbeer. Oh my god, sounds so good.
I am so hungry. I have to eat. I have to eat. I haven't eaten any food all day today.
We definitely have to take a trip to Potter World at some point.
I have eaten no food all day today.
Why would you do that to yourself?
I don't know, but I have not eaten any food today.
Do you want me to pack you a lunch for tomorrow or something? Like,
I don't know, maybe you should.
eat? So is that your way of saying it's time to sign off?
Yeah, probably.
That's fair.
Dan was like, "Eat!" Kayla, I hear you. It was boring. It was just like, why is this happening? What's the point of any of this?
That's what I'm saying. Don't pass out. You did drink water, didn't you? It's like 90 degrees today.
Yeah, I drank a lot of water today.
Okay.
I peed like 10 times at work.
I have to start calling you at work, making sure you're eating. Be that annoying mother. You're sure you're eating enough today, dear?
Yeah, this last chapter was
granola.
This last chapter was so nauseating, and Maddie, I don't think the next one's gonna get any better. In fact, I think the next one might piss me off more than any of these other chapters.
Which is why I said, I mean, we can think about it if you want to take a break and we could do something else.
We're so close to
got some-
finishing. We're so close to finishing. We just need to finish.
Okay.
We just need to finish. Well, if it pisses you off more, it's more entertaining for us. I'm not gonna lie, Robin. I don't think I can read another werewolf fan fiction again after this one. Not for a while.
I don't know. It would be interesting. Just see how far you make it in another werewolf fan fiction. Not dedicate ourselves to reading the entire thing. Just see how far you make it before you just like throw your phone.
For Teddy Lupin, Harry Potter would become a Dark Lord. For Teddy Lupin, Harry Potter would take down the Ministry or die trying. He should have known that Ron and Hermione wouldn't let him do it alone. That's the blurb for the one about the werewolf thing.
It's 11 chapters. Give you 4.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm just like, that blurb gives me nothing. I don't know what's gonna happen.
That's the best part.
It's true.
You can't make any assumptions about the story.
Well, other than there are werewolf undercurrents, apparently. What does Remus do next? Now I'm curious as to what I read ahead. Well, Maddie, guess what? He's going to get in a fight with Sirius and be abusive to him. That's what's gonna happen.
Spoilers! Could not see that coming.
That's what's in store for us, ladies and gentlemen.
There's
Jeez,
weird stuff with the Marauders. Is there any, like, just Marauders fanfics where it's just, like, them doing pranks and, you know, like a feel-good fanfic?
Yeah, the next stream will be on Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what time.
Because that all depends on her schedule.
My schedule is actually... I get out at 3 on Saturday.
Okay, so we can do the 5 o'clock again.
I don't have to do the Ruse or the Birds on Saturday.
Okay, so 5 p.m. Eastern.
5 p.m. Eastern time this Saturday. We're going to read Remus treating everyone like garbage again.
Remus is abusive. The story. A novel at this point.
It is a novel. It's 188 chapters. It's a novel.
I feel like we should get some award for making it through this, right?
We should. I deserve a goddamn medal for doing this and reading it properly without. I'm still doing characters and everything.
Yeah, when you get to the point where you just stop doing voices and just reading it monotone, that's when we know you've just given up on the fanfic. Right?
Grammy, something.
Good night, Ren. Yeah, we're gonna hop off here.
We gotta take off. I gotta eat food.
Yes, before she passes out.
Yeah.
There you go, hero medal.
Yay! Yay!
All right, everyone. I hope you all are well nourished. Go get some food if you're not, and have a great night.
Yes, have a good night, everybody. We'll see you Saturday.